At 2 o'clock today, the Seattle Mariners put out a press release announcing that they will be ending their partnership with broadcast partner Root Sports and joining the MLB's broadcasting umbrella for the 2026 season. Welcome to the Dom Skeen channel, your one-stop shop for the Mariners storylines on Seattle's minds. And the biggest Mariners news of the day came just at 2 o'clock today. Even though we've got this Dodgers series coming up, this is undoubtedly going to be the biggest news, unless maybe Cal hits a few home runs tonight. However, I'm just going to go ahead and read the press release that the Mariners put out, then talk about what this means for the organization, for the ball club, why this happened, and kind of ask what you guys think, review some of the reactions from Mariners fans and media alike. Anyway, starting out with what the Mariners put out at 2 p.m. today, Pacific Standard Time. We continue to focus on finding new ways to bring our games in 2026 and beyond to our fans, and we've determined joining with Major League Baseball is the best path. Beginning in 2026 and moving forward, Major League Baseball will provide opportunities to bring new features and benefits to viewers of Mariners baseball. We are incredibly grateful for the dedication and excellence demonstrated by the Root Sports staff over the nearly 4 decades they have televised our games. And credit to the Seattle Times, they put out a piece, Adam Jude and Ryan Divish, shortly after 2:17 p.m. today, just 17 minutes after, shout out to them. Fans will still be, to quote them, they said, fans will still be able to watch games through their cable subscribers on a specific channel, but there will be no other content provided other than the games broadcast. Now, for you guys, what this means, if you've ever had experience watching on the MLB TV app and stuff, there's really sometimes no commercials. It'll just say, commercial break in progress on the MLB TV thing, and there will be no pregame or postgame a lot of the time. Now, tons of MLB teams were with Bally Sports, which was a big regional sports network. That one was, I think, it was the big one before that. It was Time Warner was one of them. I don't remember exactly which broadcast companies had all these, but it's all been this muddled mess for a long time. And this whole thing started with, I'm going to go back to 2008 when MLB created something called ML Major League Baseball Advanced Media. And basically what this did, it was this big kind of copyright and, kind of set of copyrights or something like that. I don't understand all the legal jargon as I was only 10 years old when this came out. But as a teenager, what I did understand was that this was the reason you were not allowed to post baseball clips on YouTube, on social media, and the sport suffered from 2010 to 2015. You would hear the phrase baseball is dying everywhere, even though attendance was steadily going up, revenue was steadily going up with inflation, with the U.S. markets and stuff. It was still just as America's pastime was still pretty much as popular as ever. It had an older demographic. The younger markets were way more into the NFL. Odell Beckham Jr. becoming this big star, right? Social media, massive for, those one-handed catches, things like that. The NBA, LeBron and Steph Curry. And there was so much on social media, in that golden age where Instagram was just starting. Vine was a thing. Snapchat was just starting. And MLB, really shot themselves in the foot with MLB Advanced Media because they said, we want to own all of the media rights and stuff. We want to be the ones producing all the content, making money off of it. We want to discourage people basically from going on YouTube and creating their own content surrounding baseball and using MLB content to do so. They just made it extremely hard to do so. And part of this was because the way that baseball has been built as a financial institution is you have the Major League Baseball teams worth billions and billions of dollars. About until really the last 10 years, which is where this whole thing changed, and the Mariners really kind of got shot they really kind of were the odd man out and really got left in the dust in this whole thing. But basically, these Major League teams worth billions of dollars, and for a long time, the most valuable thing that they have is the television rights, the ability to watch the games, which is why there's been regional sports networks. It was FSN Fox Sports Northwest back in the day, and then that changed over to Root Sports eventually. But those regional sports networks that every team had, the Yankees Yes Network, Dodgers with Time Warner, and they had a big problems about 10 years ago, 2013, between 2010 and 2013. All of these broadcasting rights started to be a problem as cable companies were splitting up. And the most valuable thing MLB teams can offer is the television rights to watch the games, where they're offering it to DirecTV, to Comcast, Time Warner, Dish TV, all these different things. And I remember going to a Dodgers game. It was after my freshman year of high school. So, I was about 15 at the time, about to turn 16 in a few months. And they were handing out all these Dodgers shirts at the game saying, "I need my Dodgers," and with a big Time Warner thing under it or something like that. So this was actually Time Warner, the cable company, who was putting these shirts out kind of as a thing saying, hey, as locals in LA, local fans and subscribers of the TV companies, the providers in LA, need the ability to watch their Dodgers because the Dodgers, or something with the MLB, the Dodgers broadcasting was going to exclusively partner with some other TV company, with one TV company, and basically block out some of the other ones. So a lot of people who subscribe to different TV companies, it was like, say, you subscribe to Comcast, oh yeah, you'll be good. But if you subscribe to DirecTV or Dish TV, oh, now you're kind of SOL when it comes to watching the Dodgers. You just either have to switch to the other company that has it, which they can just create basically a monopoly, and which is extremely valuable for that cable company too, as baseball is one of the few things that has held on this long, keeping people subscribed to network television. The rest of network television, news networks, all these different cable channels have also seen so much struggling. And that brings us to streaming, which is the direction that a lot of different media has gone. But MLB eventually, in the later parts of the 2010s, they kind of lifted the ban and kind of destroyed MLB Advanced Media, which this is credit to Rob Manfred as commissioner, because this is one of the few things he's done that was absolutely a good thing. Basically, they killed MLB Advanced Media. They got a lot more lax on the ability to use MLB content on YouTube, on Instagram. And then what do you see? You see the clips and the popularity of videos and content from the sport explode because people were allowed to make content. There's tons of creators out there from, Giraffe Neck Mark. I remember 2019, it was really starting to feel like a boon when John Boy was coming out. Giraffe Neck Mark, credit to him. Credit to, the Just Baseball podcast network. I don't remember exactly, the Locked On network. Not all of these, creators and creator networks and things use direct content from the MLB. A lot of them are just like me talking into a camera. But just the ability to have the sport out there in more places allows someone like me to talk about it. And then you, even if you didn't watch the game, maybe you at least saw some things on social media, you can still understand, my perspective from either being at the game or watching it on TV, but from a more, StatCast oriented perspective, and more of a, I like to think of myself from a scouting perspective, or more of, maybe a long-term outlook than some people would think. Maybe thinking about it from an organizational standpoint, but not just looking at things as, oh, this is a basic piece of entertainment for me to consume and recycle and kind of consume and forget. Without doubt, it's gotten better, with all of these clips being able to circulate around social media. But part of the problem is that now the stranglehold on watching MLB games has loosened. And I'm sure I don't have to tell you that, if you're watching MLB in 2025, how you watch it, there's so many different ways you can watch it now. The Mariners offer a Root Sports app this year because it was kind of a last hope for Root Sports, which is, offered on Fubo. I watch on Fubo a little bit. This isn't advertisement for Fubo by any means. I really wish that they would allow me to watch on external monitors. But as soon as I plug my external monitors in, they don't, let me do that. And so anyway, the more that this gets, has gotten splintered, and now you can easily watch the games more than pretty much ever before. But that's really loosened these broadcast networks' ability to produce the biggest kind of chunk of money for MLB teams. And so big market teams like the Dodgers, they're fine. The Yankees, the Mets, a lot of those teams are honestly doing just fine. The Phillies, but teams like the Mariners, and I can't really think of exactly which other ones, but there's a lot of those Bally sports teams, a lot of those blue collar fan bases. I'm willing to bet a lot of those Midwest fan bases and stuff. And those teams, they don't get these massive influxes of money because they don't get an average of 40,000 to 50,000 attendance per night in a big city. And they don't get to charge. So maybe they don't get to charge as much for tickets even. Their economy just isn't, at the level of New York or LA's. But they're all bidding the same money when it comes to players in the offseason. So you see how this becomes a problem. And this is where you have, the Rockies, got swept by the Mariners. But there's so many more things than just these players on the field, some of them 32nd round picks who have grinded to get to the MLB. I have massive respect for that guy. But part of the problem is that, the Rockies are now spending so little on the team because so few people are watching the team, and there's less incentive to do every little bit of the organization right. And anyway, that's a little bit tangential as a subject for the offseason more. But when we get back to the broadcasting, this is, the Mariners basically moved to the MLB broadcast umbrella because it's the best way for them to keep bringing in money. And to go back to the Seattle Times article from Jude and Divish, just to quote them one more time for really these last couple paragraphs where they lay out what's happened in the last, decade, basically, which is, first of all, I found this part interesting. Is Mariners chairman John Stanton was present at a staff meeting on Monday to announce the plans to the remaining employees of the network, which has been owned by the Mariners since 2013. The employment of more than 25 employees will end on November 3rd. The future of Root Sports and the regional sports network model at large has been clouded in uncertainty for years during the decline of cable television subscriptions and the rise of streaming services. And this is the interesting part right here. In 2013, the Mariners purchased a majority stake, 71% of Root Sports Northwest, a time when local broadcasting rights were a rich source of revenue for pro sports franchises, as we were talking about. But this is it. This is the kicker. The revenue model changed dramatically over the next decade. At the end of 2023, the Mariners lost their long-standing broadcasting partner, Warner Brothers Discovery, a minority stakeholder in Root Sports that had provided operational support to produce Mariners games. That made the Mariners the only MLB team to have 100% stake of its regional sports network. And so when that happened at the end of 2023, the Mariners were talking for years about how owning Root Sports was going to bring in a bunch of money when there was a new broadcasting deal. However, that never came as MLB Advanced Media got basically weakened. The stranglehold on the monopoly on broadcasting rights in the MLB loosened and weakened. And now the Mariners have basically thrown in the towel on Root Sports, which they bought for a lot of money. And said that they were going to make money on. When Warner Brothers steps out in 2023, they said, hey, we're bigger than you, and we only have 29% of this, but we're providing all this operational support and stuff. When they said they were out, 2024 and 2025, it looks like the regional sports network, the Mariners had the 100% stake in it, the only MLB team to do that for the last 2 years, and they just had to pay. They had to do too much with it sounds like. I know I tweeted at Angie Mentink earlier this year asking why there wasn't a post game during one of the first few road series. And Angie replied to me saying that, unfortunately, we're not going to have pre-games for road games this year, which was a bummer. And, I pledged to do some pre-games, which I did not. I stuck with my kind of one video per game. But anyway, back to the schedule at hand. It's like there's been less pre-game stuff, less post-game stuff. There's going to be less of that going forward. And yeah, all that stuff on Root Sports surrounding the Mariners, that's all gone. But however, I want to go back to Divish on Twitter because he's been putting out some good stuff on this. And then, so with Ryan Divish on Twitter, he, some people, and really what a lot of the fans' reactions have been positive, saying, oh, we're not going to miss Root Sports, see ya, because they see it as an obstacle to more availability in watching Mariners games. However, other people are saying, this is really a bummer for, this is really a blow for the people behind the camera, in front of the camera. However, Ryan Divish said, shortly after he posted his article, the bulk of the broadcast team for television and radio are employed by the Mariners, and that likely won't change for next season, which hopefully means, that we keep all Aaron Goldsmith, Rick Riz, Angie Mentink, so on and so forth. However, there could be definitely some changes. As we're going to be under the MLB umbrella, there might be some uniform things that they want us to do. And it's a bummer because I have to admit, I really enjoy going and watching all the different regional sports networks and feeling that region's kind of personality come through. And you still kind of get that, with somebody who's spending every day at the ballpark with that team and in that city. They do, you do get that regionality from it, but even, the broadcast package and everything, it's just one of the few, as sports move into, more and more modern of an age, this is another thing that's just getting a little bit more monopolized. And there is there is something that is really beautiful about having, a separate network from the MLB, even though there's a lot of advantages with the MLB, just being able to have a safety net of everybody gets the same broadcast package, everybody gets the same broadcast deal. And this is where it gets tricky. In this same tweet about the staff changing, or the broadcast team not changing, he says, you will still be able to watch the games on your cable subscriber, similar to what the Padres and other teams under MLB are doing. Now, a lot of people are replying under this. So, yeah, like the Athletics, the Guardians, the D-backs, Giants, Padres, Phillies, Rockies, Twins have all added like a .tv, Rockies.tv, Twins.tv. And that's now their channel, I guess. It's a way for fans to watch in the home television territory with no blackouts. Blackouts are going to have to go away at this point because the MLB basically, I don't know exactly how many of the team's rights they own, but I could look that up. Anyway, the more that they own, the more that they can kind of choose how to let these things happen. And eventually, if they own everything, you can't block out the fans in that city from watching the team completely. You have to give them some way, even if it's the exorbitant, way, for you to get the most money out of them, regardless of convenience or anything. And that's really what it has been for a long time. There should be some wins in convenience, because you should be able to watch anywhere pretty accessibly. Although I hate to say it, I'm not a big fan of all of the accounts that you have to make everywhere, different apps. I know a lot of people aren't either, and it's really nice to be able to just have something and be able to change the channel and stuff. And it's not clear if this, what direction this is going to go with that. If it's going to be easier or harder. They could say, oh, it's easier. You can watch everything on your phone, but you need a different app for everything and a different login. And anyway, the real interesting part here is, does every team get the same television deal under the MLB, even though some teams are getting watched way more? Does the Dodgers, which are getting watched around the world with Shohei Ohtani and $300 million team, do they get do the Rockies get the same money as them, even though they're only spending $10 million on their team, and then they just get to take the same piece of the pie, because that's really is a reasonable business strategy for certain people. I mean, not to name names, but Pirates. It's like it just is the way it is, and teams are definitely doing that now. But what really is true is that what's true is that the CBA is up after this year, and there is likely going to be a lockout heading into the 2026 MLB season, because both sides are going to need as much leverage as they can get. And I don't know why either side would cede just to have a season when, there's more money on the line than ever before. Baseball is clearly not having any trouble generating profits now, producing money, being one of the mainstream sports in America. I don't think we've had that conversation in years. The only question now is how are the players and the league going to come to an understanding when, last time in 2022, it looked like it was going to get ugly. Spring training was massively delayed, and then they came to the table and got spring training going eventually so that they could, get a regular season going, which they only had to push it back a week. But then all of this, arm fatigue and pitcher injuries that we talk about, it's worth mentioning there was literally a shorter spring training there, that impacted that. But with this new television deal, the players are definitely going to have some concessions they want the league to make. First of all, salary minimum, salary floor. So I don't think there will be a salary cap, because as these owners work, right, the owners together, are going to make concessions to each other, right? The Yankees owner knows the Pirates owner doesn't want to spend as much as him, but they can still work together to find the best solution for what both of their goals are. And so that's kind of why there's no salary cap and salary floor right now. The players would love a salary floor. A salary cap doesn't help them necessarily, but a salary floor means that the Pirates can't just cheap out and put together a $15 million opening day roster with before they had Paul Skeens, right? It would have been, like the Rockies are probably going to start Kyle Freeland on opening day if it's not Chase Dolander. So, they can't just trot teams out there like that. If they're forced to spend $50 to $100 million on players. So that's really one of the big hopes for the players. But with the league, it's, a lot of the hopes are going to kind of align on these like television lines, right? Then it's going to get messy because there's a lot at stake here. The last CBA negotiation was not pretty. And it almost caused a real big lockout, but they decided to have a season because, the sport does need to play 162 games per year. But, at this point, the Mariners are going with the MLB broadcasting umbrella. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. And this is going to be something that we monitor going forward. It's going to especially play a role as the Mariners have a lot of work to do in free agency. Are we going to re-sign Josh Naylor? Are we going to re-sign Eugenio Suarez? Who knows? I think Naylor I would love. Suarez I think might, as much as I absolutely love the guy, might suit a different park better than here. But we'll get into all that stuff too. Let me know what you guys think of this breaking news today down in the comments below. And I will see you guys tonight for our Game 160 recap. First game against the Dodgers. Excited for the pitching matchup tonight as we have Kirby for the Mariners. Good to have him get another start because he has been injured for a bit this year, so his innings are still pretty low. You still have, I think he's only at like 120, 130 innings, so you still have a good 55 innings that if you really needed in the playoffs out of him. Although obviously you wouldn't need that many, so get him firing on all cylinders going into the playoffs. Get him a practice game against the Dodgers, who are pitching Emmett Sheehan, one of my favorite breakout stars of the second half, not on the Mariners. A guy who's been absolutely dealing recently, has electric stuff, was injured for the first half of the season, but I think this guy could be an absolute breakout star next year, an all-star, one of the top pitchers in the Dodgers rotation. Then we face Glasnow on Saturday, and Clayton Kershaw makes his final regular season start on Sunday in Game 162 at T-Mobile Park in downtown Seattle. Anyway, let me know what you guys think of this massive news down in the comments below. Also, feel free to let me know your score prediction for tonight's game, who you think is going to homer, and how many strikeouts Kirby's going to have. That being said, I'll see you guys after the game. Go M's.